Before we begin, I want to correct a mispronunciation that's going to come up in this episode. In 2016, a man named Philando Castile was killed by Minneapolis area police officers. Later in this episode, his name will come up and I will mispronounce it. His life and contributions to his community are worth remembering correctly. With that said, here's this week's show. Enjoy.
Hey everyone. Before jumping straight into the interview with today's guest, Gregory Hagedorn, we wanted to take a moment to address the topic that we will be discussing. While we typically try to keep our episodes fun, lighthearted, and in the realm of high strangeness, this week's episode of The Eternal Void, but with Jazz, may explore some subjects that are disturbing or upsetting to some listeners.
Greg is a member of the LGBTQ plus gun club known as the Pink Pistols. We invited him on the show to talk about his involvement with the Pink Pistols, his opinions on left-wing gun ownership, the dangers of gun violence, and the realities of legal self-defense as covered by the Second Amendment. Although we may all stand on different sides of the gun ownership debate, we hope that Greg's knowledge in this area helps folks determine what is the right choice for themselves.
The goal of this podcast is and will always be to heal and to educate. With that in mind, if today's episode is too heavy for you right now, no hard feelings if you decide to tune out for this one. We hope to see you again next week for our chat with Sarah from the That Divination Witch YouTube channel.
We also want to reiterate that the opinions expressed by our guests are not an endorsement of illegal activity. The Eternal Void, but with Jazz, takes a firm stance against violence and encourages listeners pursuing gun ownership to follow all local laws and regulations in the process.
We will always stand with victims and survivors, and we pray for a world that is free of gun violence. If you would like to help make our community safer, one nonprofit that you should check out is Sandy Hook Promise. Sandy Hook Promise supports schools, districts, state education agencies, and youth-serving organizations across the United States with practical, easy-to-implement gun violence prevention programs. Over 38 million students and adults have participated in their programs, and so far, their interventions have directly saved over 1,000 lives that would have otherwise been lost. You can learn more about them and support their work at sandyhookpromise.org.
Without further ado, on to this week's show.
It was like, would you like to customize your headphones, sir? And I'm like, no, I would like to use them immediately. And it didn't get that. How should we begin? Have we begun? Is this the beginning? Or is this before the beginning?
You know what? We're not sure yet. It's kind of a liminal space in between, which is kind of where we like to start and end everything, right, Gabby?
Right?
Yeah. So, hey, welcome back to another episode of the Eternal Void, but with Jazz podcast. We appreciate everybody who's listening. Thank you for being here this morning or whenever you're listening. Today, we have former automotive engineer and liquor executive Gregory Hagedorn, now an innovation engineer and soon to be an adoptive father. And I think what we're going to be talking about today is going to be a little bit different from other episodes we haven't had in the past, but it's an important topic that Gabby and I were eager to explore. And we wanted to talk with Greg about LGBTQ gun rights and topics surrounding that overall arcing umbrella in these times that we currently are finding ourselves in. So, Greg, good morning. How are you doing today? Hello from right down the street.
Hello. Good morning. And I am fantastic. I am centered. I have that energy that in my core that I feel, just coming out and filling me with imagination and things to say. And I feel safe.
Well, that is awesome. And I just hit my microphone. We will edit that out. Oh, your coffee cup says Detroit.
Oh,
rock on. Yes.
I love it.
To represent because you're recording.
Hello from the city of dreams, right? That's amazing.
I like that better than the Motor City.
Why not both, right?
Yeah, well, we have Dream Cruise.
We do. We do. Gabby, for the uninitiated, Dream Cruise is like the largest classic car show in the nation.
Oh,
And it takes place like for like an extended weekend in like mid-August?
Yeah, it takes up a whole weekend, and the traffic starts the week before. And
yes.
That's just all of Woodward Avenue, all the way from Pontiac to downtown Detroit.
Yeah, so that's like 15, 16, 20 miles, something like that.
Oh my gosh, that is big.
Yeah, and it is just a constant parade of classic cars going down the strip.
Yeah.
And then there's also classic cars parked on the strip. And then they have like vendors with delightful, car themed things going on in them to like so that they'd be like, hey, I want to be a Bosch customer.
Yeah. And like people are for real about this. Like they start staking out their watch spot like a week before. Because like Woodward is like a giant boulevard with like businesses, restaurants, everything. It's like 4 lanes each way, sometimes more.
Oh my gosh, wow.
There are actually for people who live near Woodward, there are Dream Cruise refugees that we house every year. Our mutual friend Jeff is one of them.
Oh, really?
And he always he does not like Dream Cruise. To him it is noisy and smelly.
It is.
And trafficky, and he chooses to spend the weekend watching movies with us usually.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I've gotten stuck on Woodward a couple times during Dream Cruise, and a lot of those cars, classic cars, don't have catalytic converters. A lot of them are still burning leaded gas.
Oh
so yeah, it's more fun to watch the YouTube videos of the event than to be anywhere near it for that time.
Yes. Although I do believe there's a lead-free additive that you can now put in the gasoline to make it.
Oh, is there?
Work on a leaded vehicle.
Oh, that's awesome.
I still don't want to inhale it.
No, definitely.
Right? Yeah, even regular car fumes are not good.
Yeah.
Do you know why they had lead in the gasoline?
To stop the engines from knocking.
That's right. It as a lubricant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a octane adjuster.
Yes. And the guy who invented it knew it was bad for everybody, but still pushed it anyway. And had this whole I can't remember his name, but he's got an interesting story. He did this whole press conference where he washed his hands in the lead, like it was a liquid.
And then he got he got so sick.
He got so sick from it and had to like recover over a period of months, but he kept that under wraps. And then do you know how he died?
How?
Didn't he invent his own traction device for his bed and then it killed him? It
did, yeah. He got some kind of paralytic or like some kind of disease that affected like his ability to move. So he invented like a traction device for his bed to help him like move around in bed. And it ended up like wrapping itself around something really important and it killed him today. But Greg, we had a couple things we wanted to talk about. And some of those topics got shelved for a later date. And I still want to pick your brain on mycology to the extent that we can. But
I can talk about mycology.
We can.
Okay. For those of you who don't know, I am an innovation engineer. I currently invent things, and I can talk all day about the mycorrhizal network, if that's what you'd like to talk about. I came here to talk about the surge in interest in firearms amongst liberals, but we can make this a multifaceted conversation. I would be happy to indulge you in any topic you wish to cover.
All right, well, let's see how time goes, and we'll do one, then the other. How's that sound?
Okay, which one do you want to do first?
I don't know. Now I'm just thinking about fungus firearms, like funguses armed with like 9mm in the woods. So let's do the
Last of Us vibes.
Yes, it is. Ooh, sniper mushrooms. Okay, I'm putting that on the board to develop that idea later. Okay, let's talk about LGBTQ gun rights, because this is I came to Twitter right before everything happened with like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and a few other names that we really shouldn't forget that I since have forgotten. So I'm going to refresh my memory on that after the show. Make sure those names get in the show notes. But, everything had been building up to a point and then it just exploded. And every city in the country was having protests, a lot like what we're seeing today. One of the first things I did was joined. I didn't own any firearms and I still don't. But there's a reason for that, we can talk about as things go on, but I support firearm safety and education and ownership. I joined a group to that ends, rhymes with, pro-socialist Keifel Association. And sadly, their membership list ended up getting leaked and hacked. So I distanced myself from them after that. But definitely, definitely still support the cause, right? I don't want to see any more violence than there has been. I don't want to see an escalation in violence. But I think that, right, that the ability to defend oneself should not be limited to one side of the curve, right? And also, you know what they say, like if you go far enough left, you get your guns back, right?
Oh, absolutely. But I feel like, in America, you get your guns everywhere.
You do.
And that's one of the great things about being an American. LGBTQ plus gun rights are the same gun rights I have, are the same gun rights everyone has. It's not different. I am pro rights for everyone, and I think everyone should exercise all of their rights to the extent that they feel comfortable in order to, exercise them. Because like a muscle, you lose it sometimes if you don't use it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something that I'm just thinking about, like, I don't know if this is the case, and looking at it, but Kansas just decertified all trans people's driver's license, which means they're not valid, which means they can't drive, they can't vote. It limits access to medical care. And I don't know if it limits access to gun purchases. I don't think it does, just based on what I'm looking at, but I would definitely encourage concerned.
It really makes it harder.
Yeah.
I mean, your license is involved. And you have to ID yourself, to even get the paperwork to fill out,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So according to, God, I hate to use AI, but according to Google's AI overview, yes, you must present a valid government issued photo ID, such as a driver's license, to buy a gun from a licensed dealer in Kansas. So yeah, there we go. Trans people can no longer, possibly, if the Google AI is correct, which we all know it's not always correct, looking at you putting glue on pizza. But we'll put 70% trust in this answer and just say that LGBTQ gun rights are definitely something that is on the table right now. And I think we're all aware that in the 80s, we really didn't get a whole lot of sweeping gun regulation until the Black Panthers started publicly arming in California. So we all know
Reagan was in charge of that.
Yeah, Ronald Wilson Reagan.
Reagan, he is definitely, at least a quarter Antichrist, on his mother's side.
Yes, most definitely. Greg, I'll let you take it away. Like, you've been doing some work in this field recently. You've hosted some events in the Detroit area where we both live. Tell us about that.
Well, you started with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. And I'll tell you, George Floyd I found very disturbing. But I was actually much more disturbed with this Breonna Taylor incident. You know why? Because they broke into her house and her boyfriend defended himself with a firearm. And they tried to prosecute him as a murderer and cop killer.
Yeah.
And that made me furious. I think that if you don't announce yourself as the police, if you break down someone's door and surprise them, even if you do say you're the police, these people have a right to defend themselves against what could be a impersonator force, which exists now.
True.
You know, the more recent events in Minnesota with Renee Good and Alex Preddy, to me, have been a different level of disturbing because it was the government not seeing what they did wrong. See, in the Renee Good, in the Breonna Taylor, in that case, I believe her boyfriend did get off in the justice system. They said, no, he's innocent because he was defending himself in his home. And the officers had to deal with that.
Yeah.
But now, there's no repercussions from the higher-ups. It is top to bottom. Like, I knew that I love many police officers, but the training that they've been getting recently about treating their lives as more important than the lives of the people they're supposed to be protecting,
yes,
and shooting first when they feel threatened.
Yes.
I think the recent trends in training, and there's a particular man who has been pushing this kind of training, who has been working on a national level, and I can't remember his name. He has a funny mustache. But he goes into these precincts and he tells the police, like, you are more important than the people you protect because there's only so many cops and you protect the order of the whole world. And basically, it's like fascism light, where he's whipping them up, making them believe that they can't have normal lives anymore, that they have to take down their social medias because they'll be targeted in their community by the community that they police.
Yeah. And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy to a certain degree. I think everybody kind of remembers, like, during the George Floyd part, there was that viral video of that one police officer who claimed that, like, somebody, like, in McDonald's, like, spat in her, like, morning egg McMuffin, and, like, it never happened. She later admitted that it never happened. Like, and they're just making stuff up. It's more common than people want to believe.
Well, they're also trained to lie.
Yes.
Police officers are allowed to lie in the course of their investigation in order to get a confession, whether or not they believe that confession is true. They're allowed to, and there has been many a time proved in court where a police officer's testimony has been false. And there's been very little punishment for when that occurs, if any.
Yeah.
No reprimands from above. But that's an internal police problem. And I thought that the pit bull had a good, leash that was being held by sane people until recently. Now, my thought is I need to be able to defend myself from a paramilitary force if necessary, not to escalate violence, but to meet violence where it is.
Okay. I can pick up what you're putting down.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm at with gun ownership, where, like, if I'm dealing with paramilitary equipped people with ARs and vests they bought on Amazon, pretending to be ICE, maybe.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to do. You can get all the equipment on Amazon, including those gator masks.
Yeah.
And there have been several cases of people pretending to be ICE already robbing houses.
Yeah.
But those people were armed. And they broke down doors. and they entered those homes. And so that's a real threat that my government has created for me by allowing ICE agents to go around masked and without having to identify themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm not just worried about the government. I am worried about other citizens who are taking advantage of the government's, quite frankly, very fascist policies.
Yeah.
And, like the brown shirts weren't trained. They were just volunteer corps.
Well, and a lot of them, from my understanding, were ex-military, which is also not too different from our current police force.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have had a lifelong journey with firearms. It was...
Yeah, tell us about that. So
when I was a little boy, it was okay for little boys to play with toy guns. I had an extensive collection of toy guns. I loved them. I was fascinated by them. I imagine how you would feel about swords if you grew up 300 years ago.
I'm with you.
Or 500 years ago.
Yeah, I grew up with pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stallone with two M60s on each arm everywhere, right?
Yeah, totally. The bigger the gun, the better in Hollywood. And, I was fascinated by how they worked mechanically. Yeah. It was my first memory of realizing what I wanted to do was realizing that I wanted to build and design my own Nerf gun because I was unsatisfied with the quality of Nerf guns at the time.
Right. They have gotten better. I
have gotten better. And, I always am happy when I don't have to invent something and it just happens, something that I want. Sometimes that's just as good. I'll be like, oh, sweet. Instead of having to work my ass off, I just have to spend $60 now. But I mean, you still have to work your ass off to get the $60, but it's different. Yeah. It's like 1 hour of work versus a week. So yeah, I grew up loving guns. My father, he didn't own any, but he loved pellet rifles, and he taught me how to use BB guns and pellet rifles. Just like you would teach a young person to use a firearm. Always treat it like it's loaded, never point it at anyone. Respect it, trigger discipline, keep the safety on, keep it locked, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And eventually, when I was, I think, 11 or 12, maybe 13, he started letting me shoot rats in the backyard because we had a real problem with rats. He didn't like using chemicals to kill them.
Okay.
And they didn't work much anyway because we had pets and we didn't want to put out rat poison.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, we just tried to thin the herd as best we can.
Now, where did you grow up
pellet
during
rifles.
This?
Oh, well, this was in the Northwest, just outside of Seattle.
Rock on.
Yeah, so we had Norwegian wood rats, which were big mothers.
Yeah, that sounds like.
And they would go into our cars and chew the wires.
Oh, wow.
And cause thousands of dollars of damage, and often often cause the car to completely malfunction.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
yeah, they also went up into our attic. Although it might have been a squirrel, but there was a lot of scratching up there.
So could a pellet gun actually do anything against these big mothers, or did you have to go up to a 22?
Oh yeah, we got a Gammo pellet rifle from Germany.
Oh, okay,
that was quite strong.
Nice.
I think it was 2,000 feet per second, so it broke the sound barrier.
Oh yeah, that is not a small amount of pellet velocity.
But yeah, oftentimes the rats didn't even realize that they'd been hit. It would go straight through them. They'd jump in the air and run off and die.
Okay. Yeah, at least sounds like it's relatively quick.
Yeah, that was my first experience with hunting with my father, was shooting rats. And my only experience of hunting with my father, to be honest. I sought other male role models to help with hunting because I wanted to learn how to hunt.
Okay.
I still haven't done any big game hunting or deer hunting, but I've done pheasant, which I found to be I was very good at.
Cool.
With a shotgun.
Nice.
Yeah, because I practiced all my life with Nerf guns, airsoft guns, and BB guns.
Okay, I have to ask, did Nintendo Duck Hunt help at all?
Yes. I was a crack shot at that. But as I aged and got to the age where I could buy guns, I didn't immediately. I was in college. I was moving around, and I didn't feel like it was a responsible thing to do or something I needed to do or afford. But I did get, in college, my first personal firearm purchase was a .22 Marlin rifle.
Cool.
Yeah. And I loved that gun, and I liked taking people who had never, mostly exchange foreign students who had never shot a gun before, and I loved taking them to the range. I'd put out some, we'd go to the middle of nowhere. And we'd put out soda cans that are full and shoot them so that the soda would spray everywhere, and it was so satisfying.
Yeah, and my understanding,
if you hit
I fired a .22 rifle decades ago, and just a little bit of a step up from a pellet gun, so it's not very threatening to fire, but it will still do the thing.
It's not a lot of recoil, but it is quite more dangerous than a pellet
much
gun.
more dangerous. Yeah, you definitely don't want to treat it as a toy.
Yeah, the mob hitmen use .22s because they like that it breaks through the skull once, but not twice.
Yes.
So it bounces around inside the head.
Yeah, that's scary little factoid.
Mm-hmm. So, we treated it with respect, and I taught people how to. I've always been a teacher. I volunteered to teach after-school science in college, and I love kids, and I love people. I love sharing experiences or knowledge that I have with people who have none of that particular kind. It's like like reaction YouTube, except in real life, where you're like, "How cool is this?" And you see their eyes get wide, and they're like, "This is incredible." So, I've always had very positive relationship with firearms until. And I'd collected a few for hunting, nothing really I didn't get anything assaulty until I moved to Michigan. And, it was with a friend who was Hmong, and the Hmong people are very into self-defense because they've always been, you can look them up. They've have a long history of being victimized. So he loves that. He has a 300 blackout, which is just so cool. And I got a little 223 AR.
Cool.
The 5 point whatever. Yeah. 5.76.
Yeah, millimeter. Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Mm-hmm. Which is also very close to a .22 caliber bullet. It's just more accelerant.
Yeah, it's longer, right?
Yeah, much longer bullet. So because the equation for energy is mass times velocity squared. That's important because that means that when you double the velocity, you're actually quadrupling the energy.
Yeah, I can see that.
So. Yeah, it's exponential as opposed to doubling the mass, which just doubles the energy.
Yeah.
However, you go light enough, and there's all sorts of problems that happen. But that's the general assault rifle ammunition. It's a tiny bullet with a lot of energy.
Okay, I can pick up what you're putting down.
Yeah. So anyway, I got to the point where there were so many school shootings so many mass casualty events where I was like, yeah, who needs a detachable 30 round magazine? You know, like I don't need to be able to take out 6 people at once.
Yeah.
Right. So why should you?
Right.
Well, I felt that way for a while, you know, like I never posted like gun porn online, even though I had like several really cool ones. You know, I just, I stayed very private with it. Kind of like, you know, I was a closeted gun owner.
Right.
But then recently, very recently, I decided it was time to, you know, there were so many people that I knew and that I found online who wanted to learn about firearms because they felt the same way as me. They felt threatened by their government and they wanted to be able to defend themselves. And I know some of the mistakes people make when they first buy a firearm. You know, they get the smallest gun possible with the biggest caliber bullet, you know, like a Derringer that shoots 45 caliber or something. That will bruise your hand. You will never like shooting that. You would be a terrible shot with it. You'd probably never use it.
Okay. I can pick up what you're putting down there.
Yeah. So, you know, I just love helping people. And I thought, damn, if only there was some way I could help all these people get trained in firearms.
Okay.
So I actually like looked around at different, you know, the Socialist Rifle Association for one, and the Pink Pistols, and the you know, the Great Lakes Rifle Association, and yeah, there was like nothing really active in our area. You know, the Pink Pistols, I went to one of their meetings and it was just me and the head of the organization.
Really?
Yeah, and one person that I brought who had never shot a gun before.
Okay, tell us who are the Pink Pistols? Because like their name doesn't quite give them away as much as I think they should.
Okay, well, the Pink Pistols is a pro LGBTQ plus organization for Second Amendment rights and advocating for safe gun ownership and use amongst the queer population, essentially. Okay. But also allies. I mean, anyone can join. I'm an ally. And, you know, that's probably why I'm not a chapter leader right now, because I would volunteer to be one, but I'm just an ally. So it feels like stolen valor or something. Because there are certain things I've never done. No, but I decided to just, you know, I made contact with the Pink Pistols and Dallas, who is the Metro City Pink Pistols president. Okay. And he was like, do whatever you want.
Wow.
So I did. I asked him, and he said I could use this the logo and set up a meeting, and I made a flyer, and I put it out on Reddit, and I put it out on the Pink Pistols webpage, and we got, you know, like 12 people, 15 people.
You know, people I know saw that flyer that like have no connection to any of us. Yeah.
Really?
So that was pretty cool.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing another one now in April. But basically, I got this defense lawyer who named John Freeman, excellent personal self-defense lawyer. You know, he is local. He's very good with the Second Amendment, and he used to be a prosecutor in New York.
Okay.
And he came and he talked about what legally you can do to defend yourself, because many people don't know that unless you take a CPL class. And I wanted everybody who is a new gun owner to know what you can and cannot do when you're defending yourself. And it was all about not escalating, but meeting the force level of your assailant.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I don't want to escalate anything. Things are tough enough out there as they are. But yeah.
Being ready to meet them where they are, though, like punching a bully in the face. Sometimes it's the only way that they'll understand that, if you're ready, it's mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some value in that axiom of punching the bully, giving the bully one good punch in the face and make them rethink their next steps.
Exactly. Because it's not a free lunch for the bully.
Yeah. And I might be naive, but I'm one of those people. I am definitely naive. One of those people that wants to see both people walk away from this situation alive, if at all possible, right?
Without a bloody nose, even.
Hopefully,
but sometimes, yeah. Well, in this case, that first punch in the bully's face could just be letting someone know by that you are armed.
Exactly. Yeah. But then
and ready to defend yourself.
But then also it's got to come like multifaceted. Like there's definitely re-education or change in education in the police force that needs to happen. I'm just thinking of Philandro Castile in Minnesota, who was, as soon as he let the cop know that he was armed, the cop all of a sudden felt threatened for his life and unloaded 5 to 8 shots into the car, into Philandro with his partner and child in the car with him, and killed Philandro. And just that cop got off just on the fact that, he
felt threatened.
Yeah, he let me know he had a gun.
Qualified
and he felt
immunity
threatened.
is how he got off.
Yeah, exactly.
Qualified immunity, because otherwise he would have had to prove that he was threatened because here's a little fact about the law.
Okay.
When you aim a gun at someone, when you pull a gun out, that's brandishing.
Yeah.
When you aim a gun at someone, that's felonious assault, felonious assault.
Interesting.
Yeah. And when you shoot at them, that is attempted murder.
Okay, that all makes sense.
Yeah.
None of that goes away in self-defense. What you do with self-defense is you justify the use of murder, felonious assault, and brandishing, and you nullify them by the necessity of their self-defense.
Okay.
So you're always going to be charged with those, or they'll always look at that and say, yeah, you just committed a murder, dude.
Yeah.
Tell me why. Tell me if I should, if you have a good enough excuse, then you can get off. But it's not like saying self-defense nullifies the effect of the murder legally. It's not a difference without a distinction.
No. But
because you are going to be, if you shoot someone, you're attempting to murder them.
yeah, and there's, we all want to believe that justice and the law is blind, but it's honestly depending on your skin color and where you sit on the whole hierarchy of social privilege, assumptions are instantly made as far as whether it's self-defense or murder, right?
But here's something that I think is important.
Okay.
About many of these situations that people are in, like in your car getting shot at. That is the worst case scenario. You know why? Because even if you are armed, there's no way to accurately shoot back.
Right. And there's too much chance of, pardon me, my cat is just all of a sudden, it's lunchtime.
I mean, you're sitting down, you're in a very vulnerable position. There's windows all around you. Try not to get into trouble. Tactically, this is a tactics discussion right now. Tactically, it is unsound to get into an altercation when you're in your car.
Yeah.
Get out of your car or run away or, just drive away.
Yeah.
But don't, just be very careful.
Yeah.
Because you are also driving a weapon. And they see it as such, and they will treat you like you're wielding a dangerous weapon sometimes when
or they'll try and treat you. I'm thinking of like the Renee Good case where they tried to say that she was wielding a dangerous weapon. And really the only dangerous weapon that was wielded that day was the ICE officer's weapon and the quip from Renee Good's wife that triggered the ICE officer because apparently he had a thing against lesbians as his wife had recently left him.
It was
for another
so
woman.
Obvious. He switched his phone to his offhand so he could draw his weapon immediately after she said, what was it? Like, go get some lunch?
Yeah, go get some lunch, big guy, or something like that. Yeah.
God.
But like, and what's nobody's talking about is like relatively recently before that, the dude's wife had left him for another woman. So he sees a lesbian couple and that's also triggering him. Right. So he's got a hurt ego and a gun. And
if he didn't have qualified immunity, that would have all come out, But then again, if he wasn't being protected by literally the president, it would have mattered. And that gets back to my point. What we have here is a top to bottom, untrustworthy government at the moment.
Yeah.
So, I do feel like more of a prepper than I used to. I say everybody should have 3 months of food, dry goods that they can use no matter what.
I'm with you on that. I've got enough rice and beans to like survive off for a while.
Because the government isn't reliable anymore. That means that things like our electricity or our gasoline, which we depend on from across the seas, could be suddenly very hard to get.
Yeah. To your work with the Pink Pistols Club, so you had the lawyer come in and talk about self-defense. What event are you planning in? Is it April?
Yeah, April 26th. We are doing Tuesday, April 26th. Is that the correct Tuesday? No, it's Tuesday, April 28th. My bad. Okay. Tuesday, April 28th at Center Mass in Livonia. We are doing another Pink Pistols Introduction to Firearm Training session. And we are also going to be doing this with the Macomb Defenders as a co-host.
Ooh, nice. Okay. Yeah, and for those not listening, Macomb is the county that Detroit's in.
Yeah, Macomb Defenders are a political action group also. And one of the organizers of the Macomb Defenders came to my first event. His name is Brandon. Okay. He's a really cool guy. And he had just bought his first firearm, and it was a .22 rifle. And I thought that was really cool because that was the same one that was, my first.
Yeah.
And, he told me that there were a lot of people in his organization that felt the same way as him.
Okay.
And that were experiencing the kind of FOMO for not having a firearm. Because I'll tell you what makes me feel centered and safe. I mean, there's lots of things, like a sweater, coffee, a hug from my wife. But knowing that at any time I can meet almost any level of force and defend myself. Right. I know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, karate, Taekwondo, but I also have, adequate protection through firearms, and I even own like some old swords.
I saw some of those swords last night. I think those were yours. They were pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I got the replica Gandalf sword.
You've also got a really cool pair of black wings in your basement that we can talk about later, but I want to play with those again some more.
I collect cosplay stuff too.
Oh, nice.
I collect lots of hobbies. That's my hobby.
Okay, that was weird. We came back at the same time.
Perfect timing.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So we were just talking about the work with the Pink Pistols, which is a pro LGBTQ gun group, gun interest group and self-defense group in the Detroit area and also nationwide, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, they are nationwide. We and we there's been a huge resurgence in chapters.
Yeah, and let's talk
We're
about the
actually
reason.
considering breaking Detroit's chapter into several.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's talk about the reason that might be and violence statistics against LGBTQ people. What can you tell us about that?
Oh, yeah. So there's ample reason if you are LGBTQ plus to possess the means of defense. You have 5 times the national average chance every year of being assaulted to the point where you feel like you have to report it. All right? Now, I'm sorry. No, that's 5 times the national average of being murdered. So you're basically like living in like the worst neighborhood of Detroit and being a gang member just by being queer. Because like that's 5 times the chance of being murdered, being in the gang. But you're also 9 times more likely to be assaulted if you're LGBTQ plus. Now let's put that into a percentage. The average person has about a 2% chance of being like assaulted every year. Let me check this. Actually, hold on.
For sure. Yeah, we definitely want to get proper statistics. So take your time.
Yeah.
I've got my own article up from the UCLA School of Law, the Williams Institute, and it does look like LGBTQ people experienced 106.4 victimizations per 1,000 people compared to 21.2 victimizations per 1,000 for non-LGBTQ.
Okay, so it is the 1-to-5 ratio that I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but that's 11.6% chance.
Yeah.
So there's a 1-to-5 ratio between the assaults. You have about a 3% chance of being assaulted if you're straight and white and all that.
Yeah.
Or just the regular population. So, the average person is 3%. And it's 11.6%. Now, that's not your lifetime. That's yearly.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference between, 5 years. Like over 5 years, the average person will not be assaulted. Over 5 years, the average person who's LGBTQ plus will be.
Yeah.
And this is about openly queer people.
Yeah, and it goes up for like the subcategories too, right? Like I don't have the numbers in front of me, but like
if you're trans or of color, those both precipitously increase the odds of assault.
Yes. Yeah, with Black trans women receiving the highest, if I recall correctly. But it's not good for anybody, and so please continue.
Yeah, and it's bigots. It's you're being attacked by bigots, essentially, people who take offense at you personally and, see it as a threat to themselves, even.
Yeah. And quite often it's people who harbor some own, like, repressed inclinations of some sort of queerness that they've never dealt with themselves, right?
Well, it's all queer on queer violence,
Oh?
That's a joke.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. Just look at the statistics. They're all repressed gay people. No, it's I mean,
I see what you're saying there. That's a pretty dark joke, but I could see who would be saying that. Yeah.
Yeah, all of the bigots are actually queer in that joke. And then, of course, the joke is even darker when you make comparisons to like people saying like, "Oh, that's just black on black violence."
Yeah,
which is like,
I'm so tired of hearing that phrase. And honestly, like, I feel like I've heard it a lot less in the last 15 years, but it
So
still needs to
racist.
be educated away because
Yeah, because what it is it's violence from people you know.
Yeah.
And that is the most dangerous person, is someone that you know who, but just like, it doesn't have to be really close, although your chances of, but like, if the closer you are to a bigot, the more dangerous they are to you.
True. So,
but like, it's also high risk situations. They listed going to the club as one of them.
Oh my.
And I'm like, I'm like, that's not supposed to be a high risk situation. Why does that increase the chances of assault precipitously?
Like whenever I first moved here, I didn't really know anybody. And I was like, I'm in a big city and there's lots of stuff to do. So let me go like meet people. And like bought tickets to all of these concerts, and a lot of those like were downtown and stuff. And like, I went out as me, a trans woman, in like all of these places. And I was lucky. Nothing happened. It was scary as hell. And I was actually really, really happy with like how welcoming all of these places were. But it was a new city for me and a new place, and anything could have happened. And it was still scary. And it definitely affected like my ability to like just relax and enjoy these concerts and stuff I was going to, right?
Yeah. It's, and that's just being a woman, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
And the scarier thing was I had a pretty significant knife in my purse at the time. And like all of the concerts you go to have metal detectors these days, and they didn't detect that. It was if I had one, a lot of other people could have too. Right. So.
Oh yeah. Those detectors are for guns alone.
Well, that works for me. If they're looking for guns, then, keep the knife, whatever. But yeah, so that's something. I think I wanted to have this talk because I don't think about firearm ownership too much. It's not something that I've ever wanted to do, only because and especially like recently I had a really big like struggle with suicidal ideation in the last couple of years, and having a firearm would have definitely like made that a completely different situation. Right. But it is like, I was just thinking like a 3-point plan of like community outreach and education, first aid and harm mitigation training, and then also self-defense as the third pillar. Right.
Right. Everybody should feel like they don't have to be a victim.
Right.
No one needs to feel like they're defenseless. You are never defenseless. It's just a choice to defend yourself. It might be futile. It might be that, it's Jason Momoa wants to punch me in the face and I'm unarmed, and it's just me versus him with fists, and then I get pummeled.
Yeah.
But, I can at least choose how that happens, whether I'm fighting back or letting it happen.
Yeah. And everybody's. Oh, that was an echo from me. Yeah. And like I was talking to you over your kitchen table last night, it's like running is also an option. And one of the reasons that I train so hard with some martial arts is just to build up my stamina. Right. So if something were to happen, I'm not necessarily in a place where I could get pummeled. I could possibly extricate myself from the situation, or at least know how to block.
And mental training is also something we can all do. Even if you've never been trained in martial arts, you don't have a firearm, you don't even have a defensive knife, which I don't suggest carrying to begin with. And, I'd say pepper spray is the much better option for most people, because if you pepper spray yourself, you don't have to go to the hospital. Or you can prepare yourself for scenarios and it's mental training. Like, what if this happens? What if that guy over there isn't friendly? And, how would I deal with that? And yes, you should always consider fleeing as the first option.
Yeah.
It is the most important tool in the tool belt of self-defense, is to get your ass out of there. And that is what every martial artist will teach you. That is a good martial artist for self-defense. Maybe not Krav Maga, because that's like all about killing.
Yeah.
But to run away from danger is not cowardice. It is intelligence.
Yeah. Like the ultimate goal is to survive. And like being like some kind of cowboy hero in your own mind is generally not a good tactic for survival.
No, you're not going to fend off 12 ninjas with your bare hands. No matter how cool that would feel.
If I'm in a place where I have to
saving all of your classmates from the ninja horde in middle school.
Yeah, if I'm in a place where I want to have to defend from ninjas, the first thing I'm doing is going to look for my time machine and go somewhere else, because I'd be really excited to know that I had a time machine.
Yeah, right. Hey, there's like a ninja left. Okay. I don't know what he charges, but I
love it.
But I saw it on the Discovery Channel, I think. He was like, or National Geographic, maybe. It was about the last ninja trainer.
Oh, snap.
I love it.
I'm down for that.
Yeah, I guess I'm just like really curious. Like, what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe like a little apprehensive about firearms? Like, what would you say to them to kind of make them feel like a little bit less apprehensive, basically?
Think of a firearm like a loaded, cocked fist with which to punch people. It is a prepared amount of energy. So instead of swinging a sword, you press a button and the sword swings itself. All right? That's basically how it works. Before the gun, we had the sword, and this is just an automated self-swinging sword that uses chemical propellant in order to swing that sword. And, dispatch whatever you want at a distance, or it's an automated bow, or, there are many ways to be dangerous, and there are many things that are dangerous. A firearm is a weapon, but so is a sword. And if you would consider having a sword, why not consider having something that is actually effective in modern combat? So, it's just the modern day sword. And I think that if you are uncomfortable with it, that's good. It's a good instinct. It's a dangerous thing. But just like if you were, a lower class noble, because no one would be a serf, you were all free people. If you were a lower class noble in the 1500s, you would be expected to maybe not be great at a sword, but to have some familiarity with it. And as a citizen of the United States or a permanent legal resident, you have a right to own and operate and be safe with your own firearm. It is a right enshrined by the founding fathers and the Constitution, giving you that right that is so rare in the world. You go to a lot of other countries, you don't have that right. So I think it's actually very special. And to me, it's a very American thing to do, like patriotic even, in a good way, like a healthy patriotic way, is to exercise that right that you were given rather than letting it go to waste. And, but to do it safely, if you want to learn how to shoot, just go to a firearm range, tell them I've never shot a gun, but I would like to rent, and shoot something, and they'll probably just set you up with someone and who will show you the details of the basics of shooting a firearm. I suggest Center Mass in Livonia because they have they are the friendliest gun store in Michigan. That is their tagline. But any good gun store will help you out if you've never shot before, or at least direct you to a class that you can do. I'm doing a class.
Oh, fun.
If you are, that's what this Pink Pistols event is all about. People who have, many of the people who were at the first class had never shot a firearm before, including some people who had guns. Yeah, like Brandon, he bought a gun, and he decided he wanted to wait until he had to have the class before shooting it.
Good plan. Good plan.
Yeah, and we had, like 6 people who had never shot a gun, and they all went through like a little mini class before they started shooting. And it's there's, or just ask a friend, but I'd say get a professional to help you when you first start, because friends can encourage bad habits that they have.
Yes.
Like holding it incorrectly so that, it doesn't cycle properly. That's a big problem with a lot of first-time pistol users when they have an automatic pistol. You need to brace it in order to get a proper cycle on the round, and get a new round in the chamber or smoothly.
Okay.
If you limp wrist, which a lot of new shooters do, because you see it in the Westerns all the time, you actually are going to have jams.
Okay.
That's why you can limp wrist with a revolver, though, and that's actually kind of fun.
That's really cool. Greg,
just to go over, I think maybe I'd like to go over some of the arms that I've got recently.
Yeah, and I also, before you go, I want to talk about the aspect of gun safety. You've got some gun safes that are getting custom paint jobs, I understand. I'd like to hear a little bit about that as well.
Yes, I have several friends who are artists, and I found a really cool gun safe that, has a magnetic lock on it. So it looks like a wall art, but then you unlock it with a magnet and it opens up and you've got cutouts in a foam where you put your guns. Okay. And the original gun safe I got was an American flag.
Okay.
And everyone is going to know it's a gun safe if it's an American flag box hanging on the wall. So I went to my friend who is a fantastic character artist. And I said, "Can you put something on here that's like rebellious and fun? Maybe with like a Native American twist?"
Okay.
And he over-delivered so hard. He gave me a Cherokee war chief portrait of dragging canoe was his name. Okay. Like you're dragging a canoe along the ground. Yeah. And he had a flintlock Kentucky long rifle. It's beautiful, it's inspiring, and it is mine. And it's going to hold 2 SOCOM 16s. If you're not aware, a SOCOM 16 is a variant of the M1A, which is the civilian variant of the M14 rifle, which shoots 308 cartridges, which are big bullets. And we're getting them suppressed because we live in Michigan and we can do that.
Really? I had no idea. Yeah. I knew that was a thing you could do in over across the pond, but I did not know you could do that in Michigan. Makes sense though. Oh yeah, because hunting is really popular in Michigan, and not everybody wants to hear rifle reports outside their house day and night. Yeah, big time. Or just wear earplugs while hunting. Yeah. Funnily enough, I walked outside this morning and there was a lone earplug sitting outside my door. Oh no. Yeah. So someone only needed one, I guess so, yeah. Or there's a one-eared person who's looking to save money on somebody that sells just one earplug at a time, maybe. I don't know. But I think you just get double earplugs every time you buy them. Yeah. I've got one pair of earplugs from that first concert I went to. They're Masonic Temple branded earplugs, but they work really well.
I didn't know they made those.
I lose my earplugs.
Yeah, me neither. I've got Masonic earplugs. It's interesting. Yeah. It's like, I don't know if it's like a ritual tool or like a sound toy tool. So maybe both. Which is where I don't want to get too far off topic. Wait, Masonic is short for what? Sonic? It's like
Yeah, what's it mean?
I think it's just its own word in and of itself, like the etymology of it. Like same root word as sound. So derived from the Latin root sonus or son. So just sonic.
Sonic.
Yeah.
So Masonic. So sound of the Messiah.
No, Masonic has to do with
I think it's like
that's interesting.
masonry. I think they were stone
masonry. Like that started off as brick builders.
Oh, Mason.
Yeah.
Masonry.
Yeah, I got at the Masonic Temple downtown where they have concerts.
You know? Okay. Yeah. So it's Freemasons then?
I don't know. I think they still own the building, but it's also a concert venue. I saw funnily enough, Greet Death there with AJJ and then Say Anything was there doing their 20th anniversary.
Fun.
Yeah, so it was a good show. It was a lot of fun. But Detroit's a really cool place, and I think stuff like the Pink Pistols and Macomb Defenders and something we haven't really talked about much, but training for like Stop the Bleed stuff. I would love to have another show where we talk about like the other pillars of, that we mentioned. And also, but I would love to have you back to talk about mycology because I think I would love.
Well, as an innovation engineer, much of what I work on is top secret. However,
we can just cover the basics.
Yeah, I am going through the approval process to talk about some of the stuff that I couldn't talk about this episode. Otherwise, I think it would have probably taken up this episode because I am really excited to talk about it.
Okay. Yay. Well, we would love to have you back on that. Is there anything else you wanted to say in closing?
Join the Pink Pistols, your local chapter of the Defenders. You don't have to be a victim. You don't have to feel like a victim. And, it's a mental game. You can practice inside your head for free whenever you want and know that and it'll increase your sense counterintuitively. For me, it increases my sense of safety, knowing that I've thought through this scenario. When I think, what happens if I get a knock on the door and they say, we're breaking down this door? I've thought through that scenario. What happens if a door just breaks down? Thought through that scenario. And I don't feel defenseless in any of them. And that's the difference. It's not a unknown. It's a known quantity that I have assessed and, planned for.
That sounds like great advice. Be prepared, be safe, know your surroundings. One thing we say in my martial arts is, 360 awareness, 180 focus. Mm-hmm. So that's a good one. Greg, thank you so much for coming on The Eternal Void, but with Jazz, we're really excited to talk to you some more down the line. This has been another episode of The Eternal Void, but with Jazz. Did we have I guess our charity would be the Pink Pistols. Did we? I'm looking. Do you have that form up, Gabby?
Yeah. Pink Pistols.
We all since it's the Eternal Void with Jazz, and I feel like we've mostly been hitting the Eternal Void part today. Can we just all do jazz hands real quick?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Excuse me. Jazz hands.
Jazz hands. Don't forget, we've got a Ko-Fi. Support the show. You can help us with the hosting duties. Throw a couple of dollars up the internet pipes to us. Like, share, and subscribe if you like what you're hearing and want to help us reach more people. We really love everybody. We thank you all for listening and hope you have a great day. And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.